morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good night, depending on where you are watching us. My name is Dorota. I'm coming from Global Underwater Explorers, so-called GUE. And today I would like to discuss a little bit how do we approach instructor training in our organization. Previously, my talks have been related to GUE diver training. I have talked a little bit about who GUE is as well. And this talk is kind of related to that as well, showing what differences in our approach are in regards of instructor training as well. So let me start with a little bit of telling you from where we are coming from, or how we are most of the time associated. If I only, yes. So you probably noticed, or you may know, that GUE originates from cave diving and exploration diving. So how our training part of the organization came to be is from exploration. So the training appeared after there was a need for that, because it was not established as a per se training organization, but it was more a group of divers who has been exploring, working with scientists, and then they have decided to train people for their own projects. So the training is kind of a second or after effect of the activities that they have been doing in the beginning. But in fact, nowadays as well, GUE divers are extremely active divers. They are gathering a lot of experiences while doing a variety of different projects in different parts of the world, from exploring new wrecks to working with archaeologists and scientists to being scientists and archaeologists themselves, cooperating with governments, doing really very interesting things around the globe. Me, myself, I was, for instance, participating in a project as well in Italy, where we worked with the Italian government recovering artifacts and documenting artifacts from Roman times. So you can see that GUE diving or GUE divers are very often working in extreme environments, or they are doing work that most of the recreational divers are perceiving as very hard to achieve. But in fact, GUE is training, or we have evolved into training all levels of diving, because what we believe is that it's not a good set of skills or a very, very robust set of skills related on standardization and standardization in relation to equipment, to procedures, and to protocols. It's not only good for experienced exploration divers, but it's as well beneficial for everybody who would like to start, because having a very solid and very organized, standardized foundation will allow you to be much more confident in the water, because then you will really understand what's going on, and you will have a very clear view of what can happen and how I can, as a diver, react to those situations. So basically, our training is very strongly based on experience. So even though I'm talking here about the instructor training, instructor training, the kind of cornerstone of that is experience, because our instructors are, first of all, active divers. So it's not, and it's not a natural pathway of development that I will start as a diver, then I will become a rescue diver, dive master, instructor, and I develop on. Because our requirements to becoming an instructor might be a little bit harder, and maybe the training is designed as well in a little bit different way. So for some people, the pathway is quite, compared to some other pathways of becoming an educator in that field of diving as we have, might be a little bit longer and a little bit more demanding. So first of all, our divers, they are first divers. The second thing, they are experienced divers, because I will explain that a little bit later as well. You will see that we are requiring from our instructors having quite big personal experience, and we are not really talking here about teaching experience. We are primarily asking them to be experienced divers in variety of different environments, in variety of different types of diving, because we believe that the more vast experience the instructor has, the better he will be able to transfer the knowledge, because he will be speaking out of his own experience. He will be giving examples, and he will be more authentic because of that, because he dives exactly the way he teaches, or he teaches exactly the way it dives. With this, because the instructors, they are active and experienced divers, they are really passionate about what they are doing, and they really are eager to share that knowledge. And the last thing is that the people who would like to, or the candidates who would like to become a GUE instructors, they have to be GUE trained, so they have to be GUE divers, because the level of standardization in our organization in relation to use of equipment, to safety protocols, to certain procedures, how we do solve problems, how we work as a team, how we communicate, how we position ourselves, and how we approach the planning is very standardized, which allows people from different parts of the world just come together, let's call it shake hands and go diving. So not being a GUE diver and trying to become a GUE instructor will be really very hard. And it's not about general diving knowledge, because every instructor should have the same high level of understanding of general diving knowledge, like physiology, physics, environment, equipment, but it's about the specific procedures that GUE is using that is relevant for a candidate for us to become an instructor, because without understanding those or using those, it will be very hard to be authentic and an authentic instructor who will be able to convey the message and the philosophy of training that we have. As well, who is the instructor, or who is GUE instructor for us as an organization? So for us, we treat every instructor as an integral part of our organization. We are not really a very big organization. We do not have thousands of instructors. Our instructors are counting into hundreds globally. So you can see, compared to other agencies, that we are relatively small. But because of that size, we really can create a community of instructors that cooperate together, they exchange experiences, and we believe that they are, and we treat them as an integral part of our organization, because in the end, what they do, they will be shaping the future of our organization, potentially training next level, next generation of explorers. So then we would like to give them tools, we would like to keep them engaged, we would like to keep them advancing and then having their own experiences to educate divers in the way we would like them to be educated, to be part of our community, to take part in projects, and then become a next generation of explorers that will continue our work in the future. So this is as well one of the things that we potentially might be doing a little bit different, that we have more individualized approach to instructors. And because I am really within the organization, I'm as well responsible for instructor training, because I'm instructor examiner and I train instructor trainers. Very often I do have contact with most of the instructors because I'm somehow related to their training, and very often I'm part of the training as well. And I always try to interact with them just to know them and then help them in solving their problems in regards of how they should teach and so on. So it's more of a community as well, which is a very strong pillar for GUE in general. So the question is now, how do we train instructors? Because of course, education has a certain pathways and has a certain methodology. So it's not that we are doing things very different, but still our instructor training is related to providing instructors as much as possible teaching experience before they become instructors. So they have an ability to, in a way, practice how to be an instructor under a supervision of a professional like instructor evaluator or instructor trainer, to become more knowledgeable and more proficient in what they are doing. So first, what I would like to show you is kind of three main components that we have or we are using when we are developing instructors. So first is the development part, which I call development because it's more about we teach them how to teach. So we are trying to convey the knowledge that we have during certain types of training. So let's call it it's an ITC, so instructor training course, where we are developing their skills as an instructor. We are teaching them how to do that. So it's the moment when we transfer to them a piece of the knowledge that we would like to share. The next level is experience, where after the part of the development is done, they are going out and they are practicing, so they are applying in practice those tools that they have been given during that process. We call that internships, which I will talk a little bit more in detail in a moment. And then in the end comes the evaluation. If after getting the knowledge, after implemented that knowledge, they gathered enough experience to be at the level that we would require from instructor to be to start to teach for us. So the other, and I will talk about the evaluation a little bit more in detail as well. So I hope that you will see this graph enough. I will try to explain it as well. Because on the previous slide, what you have seen here is that we have three pieces and it looks that it's linear. But in fact, all those pieces, they are connected together and then they have a very circular nature. And this kind of continuous education flow is quite specific for GUE. So the blue spot in the middle is an instructor candidate. So you need to start, if you'd like to become a GUE instructor, you first of all need to be a GUE diver, so you need to be trained and you need to have a decent experience while using those protocols and procedures. So we require from candidates to become an instructor to have at least 200 dives to the basic level. And then at least 50 of those dives needs to be done using GUE protocols, which means diving with other GUE divers, diving using GUE configured equipment and using all the protocols, because otherwise it will be extremely hard to learn everything during an 8 or 9, 7 days instructor training course that we are offering. So first of all, you are starting as an instructor candidate where you register within GUE to do that. After you are being officially an instructor intern, then you are going to your first course observe, which means you are attending a course as an observer where you see, and it might be a course that you have already taken. So for instance, one of the first courses that people very often take with us is GUE Fundamentals course, where we teach the basics of this GUE standardization. And for sure, if you are a candidate, you have done that course, or maybe you went through a recreational path. So you are maybe Rec 2 diver, Rec 3 diver for us. So you know all of the protocols because you have been using them. But then this first observe is there to show you the course from a perspective of an educator and not a student, because our courses are quite intense. And most of the time, if you are sitting there, you are not thinking, wow, what kind of methodology the instructor is using, or how he is debriefing, or how he structures his lectures, because you really want to get as much as you want from that course. So being a student on a course is totally different as looking at the course from a seat of the future instructor. So we require, before you enter our instructor training course, to observe at least one class. And I always say this one class is enough. So then after this, you are entering, so we are moving a little bit towards the right on that circle. You are entering the internship phase. Then you are going through an instructor training course. So then we are developing you. After this, you are going back to internships. And now after, this is this experience part that we had on the previous slide, where we are allowing instructors to go through the tools that they have been giving and practice on actual students. So then after this, after you have gathered enough experience, you are going to an evaluation phase, which is an instructor examination. And after that, if you would like to proceed on and you would like to change the curriculum because you would like to develop more into cave instructor or tech instructor, you will follow the same circular path. So you again go through and observe a course, through an ITC, through a series of internships on actual classes, then you will go to your final IE, so instructor evaluation and so on. So all of the circle is constantly motivating instructors to keep developing, gathering experiences, and being evaluated. And I will talk about the re-evaluation or evaluation as well a little bit later when I talk about how we are maintaining the instructors active. So now let me talk about some other additional things that are specific for GUE course. So as you can see, we start here with an observe of a class, then we are going through an instructor training course, and then you are going to internships. And internships, most beneficial forms of internships is participating in actual classes as an assistant or intern, as we call it, where you are giving a chance to teach to actual student. So there is a leading instructor who is running the class, who is responsible for the class itself, but you are allowed, because you know already how we are teaching and you have been vetted to do that during your ITC, so during your instructor course, and you are starting to deliver lectures to real students, you are starting to do in-water work for real students, you are starting to debrief real students, so you are gathering experience, seeing what type of problems divers have, how the instructor who has more experience than you are dealing with it, and you are a little bit kind of stealing from him, because everybody will develop their own a little bit teaching style, and he will give different examples, or he will explain certain things in a variety of different ways. And certain things that we teach as instructors, and it relates to everything, everybody who is a diving instructor, we are teaching very non-specific skills in this way that it's not a sequence of movements, like for instance, deploying an SMB, so shooting a bag up to the surface, or how to donate gas, because it's a sequence of movements which is relatively easy to teach. But we are teaching people how to control their buoyancy, how to control their bodies, how to effectively move underwater. And all of those things are very hard to teach just by talking, because you need to have an experience with real students and then see what the challenges are. And then you need to teach underwater to be able really to be effective in this way. So that's why the internship process is extremely important for us, because then the instructor candidate is gathering experience during that part. And after the internship process is done, or during that process, so starting from the instructor training course and through the internships and working individually, potentially with instructor trainers as well, the candidates, they are collecting some things that we call signatures, which means if a candidate delivers a specific lecture and it meets the bar, the minimum standard that we would require, it will be signed off. And all of those signatures for all of the components that are required are filled in a form. And if that form is completed, so if you as a candidate have delivered all of the components that we would like to see, you have something that we call a first endorsement complete. Having this one, or having that endorsement, so being vetted by a group of instructor trainers that work with you, says that you are ready now to enter the second or the final stage of the training, which means your final evaluation, which is the second endorsement or instructor examination or a final endorsement. So, and this endorsement, so the second one, always is done by a person who was not involved in your previous training. There is a little bit of a slug that you might have worked a little bit with your final evaluator, but what we have created is a dual signature system where an instructor is evaluated by two separate people, and then they are vetted. Yes, actually they have learned and they have fulfilled the minimum standards that we are setting for our instructors to have. So the first part of your development and experience gathering is done with a certain group of people. It could be one trainer, it could be more trainers. But then if you are entering the final stage, which is your instructor examination, then you are evaluated by a person that doesn't know you. So maybe, and he should be more objective in evaluating your skills in that way, because it doesn't have such strong relationship as you can develop with instructor trainer if you work with him for a longer time. So I would like to talk a little bit more about this final piece, so the final evaluation, because it's as well quite specific. So how a instructor exam or instructor evaluation works within us. So the final evaluation is a real course, which means that you have, and it starts much before the course itself, because we will ask you to find your students, to organize that course, to communicate with the students, to explain what the course will be about, because we believe that if you are not able to find your own students, it will be hard for you to be active instructors, because just being an instructor doesn't mean that people will start to knock at your door and asking you for courses. You need to actively search for them. You'll need to actively be present. You will need to be part of a community. And this comes back to the fact that I said in the beginning, that it is very hard for a non-GUE diver to be GUE instructor because you will not be authentic and you will not be a part of that community, which makes it harder to be successful as an instructor. So it starts much earlier. You are having, it's a real course that you as a candidate organize from the very beginning to the very end. So from finding and communicating with the students through running that course and closing up that course. So the other thing is that it's really environment. So you are teaching in an environment that most of the time you will be dealing with anyway, because you will be most probably teaching locally, because this is where you are trying to build your own community of divers and then trying to create your GUE community in that area. So, and you have people that have not been trained within or have not been certified within GUE before. So you have actually people to work with, where you can implement this knowledge that you have been giving during your development part. You can implement the experience that you have gathered through that experience part during internships. And then you're actually teaching people. And of course, this might sound that it's quite hard, but from our perspective, it will show us that the person who is aiming to be an instructor actually possesses the skills, possesses the attitude that will be able to teach divers to the minimum standard that we are requiring as an organization. Through all of that, so because how the process is designed, what we believe we are trying to achieve is that, and I think we are achieving that as well, that we have competent instructors who knows how to teach. They know their curriculum. They know what are the tricks and hints that they can give to students. They are comfortable teaching because the first course that they teach is not the course that, it's not the first course after they become an instructor, because they have been involved in teaching before. So they do already have some experience. And when they enter the first real class after the examination, then already confident that they can do it, because we have given them, or we try to give them as much chances of training in real environment as possible. So the outcome of our training, what we are trying to achieve is an instructor who is experience-based. So he is teaching from experience, and not only an experience as a diver, but as well experience as an educator, because he, through the development part that he took, he already gained some experience teaching, working with more experienced instructors. And most of our instructor trainers and instructor evaluators are senior instructors that have years of teaching with the GUE behind their belt. So we pick the trainers and evaluators really based on their experience, variety of experiences that they can offer, and how many courses within GUE they have been teaching, so they actually have the experience that they can share. Another kind of the outcome of the training is that the instructor has a GUE experience. So it means that he is actively diving whatever he is teaching, and he is teaching what he is diving. So because as I mentioned in the beginning, the element of standardization with our organization is very high, and somebody who does not implement those tools, he will not know how to teach that. He will not know how to make an argument for a certain procedure. He will not have the proofs, or he will not be able to have tools to explain where the true value from the procedures and protocols are. Because very often when we are teaching instructors or teaching divers, we are challenged with things like why you are doing things in such a specific way, or the standardization is too much. You are not allowing for individualization, and I will do the things the way I want to do. But we believe in that standardization because we are coming from let's call it a little bit extreme dives, where the standardization is really very important to have the project and to have the mission completed. And we believe that if bringing it back to the recreational divers allows them to be more safe and have more fun dives, because they just have everything. But the only thing that they really need to focus underwater is what they see and what they experience, instead of fighting with their own skills, equipment, not understanding what's going on. And if there is an emergency, they will have like so many options to choose from that their choice might be delayed, or they might not be the most efficient one in that particular moment because they will be so task loaded dealing with other things. So that's why the GUE experience is important. And very often our instructors are community builders. They are having teams that they work with. They are going to GUE projects because they, and I mentioned as well before that they are passionate about what they are doing. So they really would like to share that. And to share it, you need to have something to share. So this is, again, this experience-based that is really very strongly entrenched in our organization. And the other thing is that the other outcome is that we are expanding, or we are trying to help them to expand their experience. So for instance, what is very specific for GUE instructor training is that we are requiring instructors to be requalified every 4 years, which means that if you remember the slide that I was having before about the development, experience, and evaluation, this circle kind of repeats itself even if you are certified as an instructor, and even if you do not aim to become an instructor in different curriculums for us, like Take and Cave. Even if you are a recreational instructor or just fundamentals instructor, then you will have a similar circle, because when you teach, you are getting your experience. But at some point, you will enter a phase of evaluation again, because after 4 years of your teaching, you will be requalified, which means you will meet with an instructor evaluator. And then you will be not only brought up to speed with maybe potential changes, some changes in protocols that we have done, but your skills as an educator will be re-evaluated again, because we ask you to do in-water work, we ask you to do lectures, field drills, so practice on surface. We evaluate your knowledge, we discuss potentially new tools for you, we teach you new methodologies that we have kind of developed in the meantime. We as well try to reduce a drift, which means that if the instructor is there out on his own teaching, he will kind of find his own ways and he will kind of adapt and adjust a little bit, and he might not even be aware that he is going away from the pathway that we are teaching, because he doesn't have anybody to compare to or see or and engage in training done by other GUE instructors. So that's why the period of 4 years for requalification for us is important, to keep everybody in the same pathway, in the same level of experience, so that they are actually teaching to the standardization that we require, because this is a cornerstone, one of the cornerstones of our educational system as well, generally speaking, so the standardization. So every 4 years, we are requiring our instructors to requalify. And then talking about the experience as well, what we require from our instructors when they renew every year, we require from them to have at least 25 non-training dives at the highest level of certification, which means if I am a Tech 1 instructor, so I'm teaching the first level of technical diving, I need to be certified as a Tech 2 diver, which means the next level. And I need to do every year at least 25 dives at that level to show that I'm expanding and enhancing my experience. If we have instructors teaching in 2 curriculums, let's say they are Cave and Tech instructors, they would need to make dives in both environments. And if you look at these dives, it's really demanding, because we are not talking about teaching dives. So if I'm teaching all the time nonstop and I do not have any personal experience, then I'm not enhancing my experience as a diver. I might be enhancing my experience as an instructor, but not as a diver. So in that case, you might lose the benefit of being experienced diver. So that's why we require every year from every instructor to dive at the highest level of their certification. So they are above what they can teach. And this needs to be their dives, not training dives, but their own personal dives to enhance their experience. So what we then create with that system, I believe, is that our instructors are efficient and effective, because so this is the goal, at least, so that they can teach whatever we would like them to teach in a way that they are able to transfer all of the knowledge that is required to the students in an effective and efficient way, which means they do things right and they do things timely. And our courses are perceived as a little bit more, or they are very, how you call it, they are dense, knowledge. So they are very, they are not longer because they might be, let's say, 4 days or 7 days, but they are so packed with skills and knowledge that for some people it's very intense. And the more efficient and effective an instructor is, the better the outcome of the course will be, because the students will not be overloaded. And we are teaching pragmatically, which I was mentioning as well in one of my previous talks, which means that we teach things that are actually valuable for that particular level and they are realistic. So the next thing that we are trying to achieve with that because of the types of experience the instructors has and what we are requiring from them, being active divers and diving what they are teaching and teaching what they are diving, we very often try to give them a role model position, that the divers that know them, that they are within the community that this instructor created, he will be the person to go to, and he will be the person who will inspire and motivate them to pursue the training. Because as well, during the training, because of how the training is designed, it might be challenging for some, and the instructor needs to have tools, and he needs to be able to show them, even if something is difficult, they can still get that, and they can still overcome their difficulties and become the divers they wanted to be because they came to our course. And then the last thing would be that the instructor will be really passionate diver, because the amount of skills and the amount of work that a person needs to put into becoming an instructor, it's not really a lot, but it requires a little bit more dedication and perseverance of getting there, because we are trying to really, the level of skills that we require is relatively high. So we would like to really create an instructor that can fulfill the expectations of the students when they are coming to a course. And through this, they will really become passionate about what they are doing, because they are invested into it and they really want to share the knowledge, because they put a lot of effort into becoming one. So they want to push that as well to others and motivate them and inspire them to do the same. So this would be it from this perspective. There are many more details related to instructor training within GUE. There is a series of videos about GUE instructor training on GUE TV. So if you go to GUE.tv, you will find a series of 12 episodes where I'm explaining more details about GUE instructor training. So you are free to go there and have a look at it, because you don't need to be a subscriber to GUE to see it. But nevertheless, during that show, there is an offer on our booth that if you go there, you can claim a voucher for 1 month free subscription for GUE TV, where you can find more educational videos from us. So this would allow you to have a little bit more detail. And of course, if you would be interested in becoming an instructor or discuss a little bit more some details of the training, I will be at the booth for a few minutes after the talk. And you can always reach out to us, and then you will probably end up talking with me or one of the other instructor evaluators or trainers that we have in the organization, who will explain how the process of becoming a GUE instructor is working. So that would be it for now. I would like to thank you for the talk. And I'm proud of myself because I didn't run over the time. So thank you very much for listening this time. And then, as I said, I will be back in the booth in a few minutes to answer any questions if you should have any. So thank you very much. I think I can stop that.
All right, thank you, Dorota. That was awesome. If you don't mind, I actually have a quick question.
Yeah.
So you said that instructors to be GUE divers, right?
Yeah.
So if you have an experienced instructor from another organization, what would be their upgrade path to actually becoming a GUE instructor?
Yeah, so it's a very good question, because I did not mention it in the presentation, but we do not really have something that is called a crossover like other organizations have. It's not that we are not kind of willing to do that, because we do have things written in the standards that would allow an experienced instructor to maybe go through that path a little bit quicker, But from experience, I know that it's extremely hard because of the level of standardization that we have. So what I normally experience with, if I'm working with experienced instructors, because I have done that in the past, they say, I do have a lot of diving experience. I have thousands of dives and I have taught many students. So why I should be going through that process again?
Yeah.
So my explanation to that is that if you are not experienced with GUE procedures and protocols, it will be extremely hard to be authentic instructor. And because our courses are a little bit more expensive than other courses, they are very intense, and people are expecting a certain, when they come to a GUE course, they expect a certain knowledge. Not having that standardization in your nature a little bit, it's very hard because you will not be sounding authentic because you will be selling a product without believing in it.
Okay.
So that's why the benefit of being an educator already, because this is my path. I went through I was an instructor in different agencies. I was teaching quite a lot. I was teaching, I think, for over 8 years there before I became a GUE instructor. And still I went through that process. And of course, the benefit that I had at the time was that I was not afraid to speaking to people. I was able to do a lecture. I didn't have enough hours underwater that I felt comfortable in the water, so I could really see what the trainer is trying to tell me. And I was maybe quicker in that path, but the path was the same. Because what I would be missing, it will be the specific things that GUE has, which is very hard to explain sometimes if you didn't take a GUE course. Because the procedures, they are very detailed. We do things in a certain specific way just to allow divers to develop to that extent. That is their second nature. And if you as an instructor don't have it, it will be very hard to tell students, you have to have it, but I don't have it. So that's why the path of being a GUE diver first, you need to experience and you need to see if you like it, because it's not for everybody. So you need to do at least a GUE fundamentals course. In that case, if you are already an instructor from different agencies, just to see what it is, just to experience it yourself. And then you can start the process of becoming a GUE instructor. And the more you are within the group of people, the more people you start to know, and the more you are not confronted, but the more experience you have with this group, you can decide, yes, I actually like that, and I would like to do this. Because otherwise, even if you pay the money, even if you commit the time, and it's always, if it's 8 days of training, it's always 8 days of training. And it's always a certain amount of money that you will spend. And after that, if you decide, okay, I don't like it, or if you become an instructor, so you put the effort into being one, and you put through because it is a little bit more organization, like for instance, with the final examination, you need to have a real course. It takes 4 days to become a fundamentals instructor. Only the exam is 4 days because it's a real class.
Okay.
And then after that, if you are not successful because nobody comes to you, it was a waste of time.
Yeah,
so I very often explain to the candidates that are trying to, instructors from different agencies, they say like, wow, it's really interesting. I said, but start from the beginning. And believe me, it will be quicker. And you will be more successful as an instructor in the end than if you say, okay, I'm experienced enough, just cross me over.
All right.
Because it's hard for you to get students, because you will not be as authentic as the people who went through that path and become a GUE divers. They know the system, they know how to use them. They have their own experience using that, so they can teach from experience.
All right. So basically start from the beginning, not exactly the beginning, but build basically get involved with GUE and then do one step after another, same like everyone else, right?
Because it is very rewarding system. I mean, I would not be talking here at early in the morning about instructor training without me believing in it. And this is what also is specific for GUE instructors, because the successful instructors are instructors who actually teach for us.
Yeah.
Because it sounds a little bit weird, but you can be a believer or a non-believer. If you're a believer, you really believe what you teach and you dive those things, you will be much more successful because you will be authentic. As I repeat that word again. People will just say, yes, she's doing what she is teaching. And it really works. Otherwise, if you change the head in between time, and today I teach this and tomorrow I teach that, and they are completely different things, people will not trust you as an instructor, because it's just a profession, it's just a course that you are doing. And today you teach.
Sounds like good life advice as well,
Sorry?
Sounds like good life advice as well.
Yeah, a little bit. No, but it's really
Right.
fun to train instructors, and it's fun to be an instructor like that, because as I said, we are a small group but super passionate, and we are here for 20 years. So I mean, it means something that even if we are still small, we are still there.
All right, excellent. So guys, Dorota, you'll be hanging out at the GUE booth for a little while after you, yeah? So if you've got any more questions, guys, go to the GUE booth and talk to Dorota directly.